Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Just excellent. Been catching those Pokemons like everybody else.
I'm very casual player when it comes to that game. It's surprising because I'm a pretty dedicated Pokemon fan, but I don't know when it comes to playing that game, I'm not as hardcore as I thought I would be.
Mm. I've only played Sapphire myself, so I like the game, but I don't know the actual Pokemon games never stuck with me. This one, I guess, because it's like okay, I'm walking about doing my own thing. That oh hey, there's a Rattata, and oh another freaking Pidgey. Got like 50 of those.
I got like 50 Pidgeys, 50 Parises. It's an epidemic.
And I saw, I'm so miffed. There was a Pikachu earlier today, and I just could not find it for the life of me. I even had incense down. I was just like, really? Uh, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Yeah, that's a word. To the first episode of From the Horse's Mouth, featuring tonight or this afternoon, I suppose, our guest, the Albinocorn,
Hi.
the great and powerful Sunset Shimmer fanfic writer. He's written God knows how. I don't know. What has it been? Six for you? Five?
One, two, three. I'm looking at five right now. Six? I think six, maybe seven.
And probably more in the works if I'm right.
Oh, there's at least three more in the works.
Three in the works? Awesome. All right. Well, just because it's the first episode, I'm going to give a quick breakdown of what this show is and what it's about. So, for everybody here watching currently, long time ago, before I became a college student and an adult and had to have responsibilities, ran an old podcast
Ooh.
called My Little Reviews. On it, myself and my team of reviewers took pony content that we could find from the Brony fandom, and we reviewed pieces of them each week between fan fiction, music, and animation slash PMVs, whatever you want to call them. And each week we would have a special guest who we would do interviews with. That was where my expertise came into play with Hannah. Between running it and interviewing the guests that we had, that was something that I did. And ever since then, I have been dying to get back into it. Now, the reason we have our guest, the Albinocorn, here tonight is because about a few months ago, well, probably December, a friend of mine had recommended me a fanfic of his. And I said, okay, sure, sounds cool. I'll look at it. Months go by, it's June, and suddenly I'm browsing through my books and I see, oh, shoot, I forgot to read this. Read through the first chapters, fell asleep, and then proceeded to finish it within 3 days. This fic is called Sunset of Time. It is at about 200,000 plus words and 25 chapters, I believe. And it's
Not counting the
a,
epilogues.
not counting the epilogues. And it was a tremendously great fic to read. And that is why he is here with me tonight. Because not only did he get me back into reading My Little Pony fan fiction of all things, but continued to be reading, get back into reading. Period. I am now actually currently reading the Penny Royal Academy series by M.A. Larson because I'm a sellout, and well, he was there at BronyCon, and that's a whole other story. But for now, let's move on with the show. So, Bono, glad to have you on.
Glad to be here.
All right, so I'm just going to start off with the softball question. So, why ponies? When did you first find out about this whole thing? Like, what got you into this fandom, into this show?
It's funny because I have a similar story to how you got back into reading fan fiction. Way back in 2011, one of my best friends and her friend, like they were just watching My Little Pony, and she told me while walking to school one day, you should check out this show because it has griffins and dragons, and it sounds like a little girl show, but it's actually pretty mature. And I'm like, we love mythology, so I'm like, okay, I might give it a watch sometime. Months go past, a whole year. I still haven't watched it. It's not just I don't want to. It's just because I'll say I'll watch something and I won't watch it until ages later. Like right now, all my friends are telling me I should go play Undertale, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to it eventually, maybe. So after high school graduation, I'm sitting bored one day just at my computer, and randomly I just remember, oh yeah, Tara told me I should watch the show. Sure, why not? And I watched it. It was okay. It wasn't super outstanding, but it was pretty to look at. The colors were nice. Twilight snark was amazing. I think that's why I kept on watching it, just because for her snark. And I don't know. The rest is history. I just kept watching it. I kept falling in love with it. And when I reached the end of season 2, I just needed more. And here I am.
Very nice. Yeah. So basically, you caught wind of it early in like the 2011 year. It sounds like then.
Caught wind of it. Didn't really understand
What the?
that it was this giant phenomena. I had no idea how big the fan base of it was or was going to get. I just got one simple recommendation from my friend. And after I finished season 2 is when I found out how deep this rabbit hole went.
Oh, don't I know it? It's about the same thing goes for me. So did you jump right? So when you basically did finally realize that, oh wow, this is actually really big, did you jump right into it, or are you pretty apprehensive to like, don't know, not sure if I want to get involved with this or not?
Um, I'd say I pretty much jumped into it. I wasn't aware of this backlash against being a brony or anything like that. I bought a shirt. I wore it around school for a little bit. I met a few friends. I also liked My Little Pony, so that was cool. And I don't know, it was until after that I kind of started exploring the internet some more and saying, oh, people kind of don't like us because we watch a show made for little girls.
Hmm.
That's sad. Oh well.
So you're okay. So then your sounds pretty. I mean, I've heard it all over the years between those two people. Like, oh yeah, everybody, all my friends, family, they're like, oh yeah, it's cool. And then there are those who are like, oh, it took years and secrecy and all that, lying and
I'm
deceit.
I wouldn't say I'm lying, but I'm not exactly super open about just how much of a fan I am. Most of my friends don't know that I write fan fiction to this extent, and I think in my family, only my mom and my sister really know that I've written stories. They haven't read them, but they know I've written them.
Hmm.
Haven't told my dad yet.
Oh. No, my family all but knows. Thankfully, my friends don't know much. I mean, then again, I don't really have to tell them. Oh yeah, I do a podcast where I talk with people about colorful equines and why they make stuff about them.
That doesn't seem like they would bash you as much as me saying, I write fan fiction, and one of them happens to be a ship fic.
eh, in defense, it's good quality.
It's good.
Trust me when I say, as someone who was on a literary magazine for his high school, um, I've seen some. I mean, everybody's not the best, and I've seen. I mean, even my own work included was probably my best one that I've done, but not anywhere near as refined as it could have been. And trust me when I say, like, yeah. Then again, I'm totally biased to the topic, but I always do look for quality in a story over what it's about, because that really determines what it, that alone to me is a much better it's a better thing to look for
You're
than
right.
what the topic is. But then again, of course, if you don't like it, I'm not saying read it because, well, you're not going to enjoy it anyway.
That's also true.
Yeah. So your mother and sister are pretty tame with the idea, at least it seems, and your dad has no idea.
No, no, not really.
Okay. So I know that, okay, if I remember correctly, you joined FinFiction around July 20th. So in a week, it sounds like it's been like, what,
Yeah,
4 years?
it's going to be my 4th anniversary, and I have a little blog
Nice.
planned for that. So,
Nice. So when you started off there, what was what was your initial motivation for writing fan fiction?
so a long time ago, I wanted to be a game designer, only for me to realize I can't draw, and I'm terrible at math. So I really just kind of left writing. Me and my friends, we would make up stories a lot, and we'd play around with those. And I just realized I'm not good at it yet, but I like doing it. So I thought, maybe I could just be a writer instead. And so when I finished season 2 of My Little Pony, I found all this fan fiction of these really good stories for this really creative world, and it just kind of sparked something within me. And I got into the habit of wanting to write and throw my hat into the ring. My first attempts were not good at all. I had nowhere near the experience or the grammatical fetishes I had now. But yeah, just reading all these great stories, like Past Tense wasn't the first story I read, but it was one of the first ones, and I thought it was really
Hmm.
good. I still think it's pretty good. Um, all the other stories that were in the Equestria Daily's storybook archive, as I kept reading through them, and just they were so captivating. I wanted to be a part of that, so
Mm.
I started out and tried to get a feel for things, and I learned a lot since then. But I'm
Yeah.
glad I jumped in.
I think yeah, everything comes better with practice experience. For instance, I think this is one of the few episodes that I'm actually pretty punctual with starting. I could not tell you how many podcasts way back when that I had started like 15 minutes late. I am the best show host ever, you know. But no, that's yeah. Everybody has their own, their beginnings. They're never really the prettiest ever. But sounds like yours was pretty steady on the uprise in the long run of things. Because here you are now, and like you've got quite a assortment of great stories too. About three, at least the ones that I've
There are
read.
some deleted stories though under my belt that will never see the
Oh,
light of
of
day ever
course.
again.
I mean, I have my own that I can't bring myself to delete it as terrible as it is, and as much as I just will never really ever read it again. I know what's on there, and I just leave it there because I think to myself that, well, somebody might get some inspiration out of this for some reason or like it for some reason. So whatever, I'll let them enjoy it. I'll just keep it in the corner and never look at it again.
I have the first draft of my first story just saved in my Google Docs, and I went back and looked at it, and like this isn't as terrible as I pictured in my head, but it's still kind of bad.
Hmm. Alrighty. So because this one's more out there for me, I am curious. So I want to talk a bit more about other. So you've mentioned you've read quite a few fan fictions, and I imagine you've made quite a few friends in fan fiction its own right. So I have to ask, which one that's not your own would be your favorite fan fiction?
Ah, that is. Oh, I knew this question was coming, and it's a hard one to answer.
Yes, it is.
Like on my main page, I have a side for the stories I keep in my library that are some of my favorites. But still, just even narrowing it down just through those, it's a hard choice. Arachnophobia by Dennis the Menace always makes me laugh every time I read it, and it's a really simple story. Just Celestia is scared of spiders. Luna gets a pet spider. Hilarity ensues. It's simple, but I die laughing every time.
Yeah,
Uh,
the simple funny stories are always good. I've always had those ones are always some of the best for sure.
and I think my favorite story that has sadly been canceled. I think one of the stories that really inspired me to do better with my writing was The Powers of Harmony by Cyborg Samurai, and it was a really good story. Not just good, it was so well written too, and just the amount of world building that went into it. If I read it, I couldn't write anything for the rest of the day just because I felt so inferior to it. But it was a really good story, and there was 30 chapters to it before he decided that he just couldn't go on with it anymore. But I think that's probably my favorite story on the site.
Nice. All right. Now, looking through my old list of questions here, some of for fun ones, and I think this was an old one from like my old story. This is one that a lot of people asked, and I feel the need to ask it again. If you could write an episode of FIM, what would it be about?
Oh, I have absolutely no idea. See, you're probably expecting me to say something about Sunset coming home to Equestria, but honestly, I have no idea what episode I would write. Um, Probably an Applejack episode, just because I she's my
A
second favorite, and I'd like to try to make an episode, another one that doesn't revolve around her and apples and rodeos.
mm,
It's she's a hard character to branch out with. But if I
yeah.
could, I would try making it. No, I wouldn't. I would make a Luna and Celestia episode about
Thank you.
them being sisters and just spending time with one another. That would be the episode I would write, hands down.
Nice, nice. Are there any ones that you would fix? Any ones that I actually suppose we could get this kind of ties into favorite, least favorite episodes.
I try not to think about how I would fix things because,
Okay,
honestly, in my opinion, that just seems really egotistical. Like, they're trying their best, and sometimes they're not going to have good ones.
fair enough.
But if I had to fix an episode, it would probably be Spike at Your Service. That is
That's unanimously quite a.
unanimously probably the least liked episode in the entire series. I think one simple fix would be not having Spike be incompetent, just have him be completely overbearing and try to do everything for Applejack, like
Yes.
including chewing her food for her before she eats it. Just why was he incompetent in that episode? He's good at what he does. I'm gonna stop now before I start ranting.
All right, I'll leave it with you here for there. Okay, let's get down to business. Not to defeat the Huns, but to interview you. So I really had to ask, what made you pick Sunset from the outset? Because not only did you pick her, but you picked her before we knew little to nothing about what her character was, what she'd be doing in Equestria Girls, and her origins for that matter.
Some things were just meant to be, and I think this was just one of those things that was meant to be. But slightly more in-depth story is, I frequent Equestria Daily every day, and February or March of 2013, they had her first toy from the toy fair, and I saw it and the description that went with it that she was Celestia's previous student. And it's in my mind like there are so many different things you could do with that alone. So much to make a story about that. I'm not going to do it because I'm already writing a totally different story that's going to be this whole long epic. So I'll let someone else get to it. Like I said, some things were just meant to be. A week later, I saw a comic that showed like Sunset taking Twilight's place as like part of the main six, and then being Twilight's student, after she ascended to be an Alicorn. And just my mind just started clicking and just thinking, this could be a really interesting character to write for being Celestia's student or Twilight's student. Is
Hmm.
there a way that I can make a story where she's both at the same time? And
Hmm.
I ran with that, and that's how Sunset Time was born.
Interesting. Okay, so that answers a few. That actually answers another question because I was so curious as to how the heck you predicted Celestia thing. But if okay, so if they did have those little like preview things from the toys, okay, that makes
Yeah,
more
I'll post
sense
them with
to me.
a little blurb, and yeah, hers was she is a previous student of Princess Celestia. She knows the way to distant magical lands, which is the hint for Equestria Girls.
Hmm. All right. Interesting. Very nice. Okay. Now about your sunset. This is something that's bugged me between all your stories. Why does she hate the color pink?
Why does she hate the color pink? Um, it's not because I hate the color pink. I like the color pink. I think it's because Cadence was pink, and she hates Cadence. In just about almost every story I write her in, she hates Cadence to some
Yes.
degree. So
Hmm.
I think that's why she hates the color pink. Is because Cadence is pink and she hates Cadence.
Okay. I had a feeling that was the reason, but I saw it repeat so much. I mean, even when it was about Kate, it's just like disgustingly pink and things like that. I'm just like, she really doesn't like pink. Uh, okay. So now I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but just Sunset of Time. You are writing a novelization of it.
I am attempting to. I am trying to set up the groundwork. It's going to be my next project for National Writing Month in November. Is I like to start writing the first 50,000 words for it.
Mm.
It's just I did a little bit more research. Just the legal hurdles and things I'd have to do to make it into an actual novel are a little daunting. Like there's a chance that if I wanted to make it into an actual legitimate novel with its own characters but based on the original story, I would might have to delete the original story,
Mm,
and that's a knife to the heart for me.
that is a tough call.
So
That
that's
is
a
a tough
really
call.
tough decision.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
barring that I can't do that, I think I might just refurbish the current story, add in some things that I wish I could have added in, tighten up a few things, and then maybe just print it as a novel in and of itself.
Alrighty. Okay, so that's just that was really the root of the question was the challenges that you were going through, and that sounds like plenty of them with the legal ramifications really have not been kind or easy for anybody in this fandom.
And making sure that there's a distinct
This
that I
distinct
changed enough
difference.
things that you wouldn't be able to tell if you've never seen My Little Pony that this was a My Little Pony story originally.
Yeah, because what the big thing with fan fiction is that you already have a world and a foundation set for you between characters and where they are, what they do, etc. So that was really my thing was so you're doing this and now I was curious if you were really going to take the time to even add more words and more like chapters to it too, even just to establish your characters because
There was going to be more chapters to establish characters and relationships and the world itself, and just for uh, publishers don't like new people submitting 200,000 word stories, so I was going to end up breaking it into three different books and just having it be a trilogy and have it be about 75,000 to 100,000 words each. And it'd give me more room to expand on everything else that I wanted or needed to include.
all right. Well, whatever one you do, either way, I think that it'll certainly will be interesting to read either way.
I hope so.
Okay. So, where to go from here? Let's jump. Actually, I will come back to Sunset of Time in a bit. So let's jump real quick to another one that seems to be well, probably your second most favorite, or well, for some, probably the most favorite. Long Road to Friendship.
That's probably the first favorite for a lot of my fans.
Mm. So, right off the bat, with that one, when I was reading through it, I was honestly apprehensive to it because I wasn't sure. I've never read an Equestria Girls fanfic, and I really did like I because I read Sensitive Time. I think that was what made me be like, okay, well, that last one was really great, so this can't be any. Yeah, this definitely has to be at least on par with that. And boy, it was. It certainly was. Um, with the way you've characterized Sunset and the way you established how she kind of became close to the one that how she became a good person, how she became went from such a manipulative and scheming person to someone who
Go ahead,
is
use
like
the word. Call her what she is. She's kind of an alpha bitch.
yes, that.
She's
um,
mine, but she's
yes.
still a bitch.
um, to what she is pretty much somewhat like I know you weren't going for Rainbow Rocks because you had no idea, but pretty close to what you got there. Um, I'm curious to what. How do I word this? Uh, what were some of the motivations behind it? What were with a lot of you did a lot of few things actually between the Lullamoons as a family, um, the backstory to things with like the main five, whatever you the Canterlot High Five. That's what Pinky called them. Yes, remembered it. Um, a lot of you really elaborate on a lot of elements to the story that really helped build up the world around it, even the other human world Twilight aspects to it. So I guess what we're really trying to say is not so much challenges, but what was like your when you were going through this, like what brought about a lot of these elements to this story?
See, this is why I make outlines and notes now, so I can go back and see how I came to these decisions. Back then, Long Road Friendship really didn't have an outline. It was just I kept everything in my head and I'm just gonna keep writing this out and see where this goes. Um, I wanted the world to feel as realistic, or at least as well written out as I could make it. So I tried to imagine just how their lives worked in this realm, backstories and all, and try to tell it in the best way possible. Um, the Little Moons were a bonus instrument that kind of just came in a little less than halfway through the story. I don't know. I saw the potential that Artemis had, and I was already thinking about, where I was going to go in the second story because there was going to be some more magic in that second story.
Mm.
So I tried to interweave them as best as I could without shoving them in people's faces. And I don't know, I tried to make everything as realistic and organic as possible. How I do it, I don't know. It kind of just falls into place after a while. I really wish I had some notes to reference off of for this, but I don't.
Okay, so that actually for another this kind of was another question I had, and like what I was gonna ask, what is your typical like writing process, or how you go about writing a story? Do you just brainstorm an idea, or does it just come to you? So
It's it's
it
it's
sounds like
changed.
you've
It's
got
changed
yeah
between now and then.
yeah it
It
sounds
it used to be just random thought. That's a story I could write. I'm gonna put that away for like a few days, see if I'm still excited for it, and then I'll come back and then I'll just start writing it. Now it's let me think this through before I go and make an idiot of myself.
oh boy, 1 second. Laptops like to lose battery life, and I plug in, turn on. Oh come on, don't do this to me. Okay, good. I did not want this to crash mid-show. That would be terrible.
Yeah,
Sorry
actually,
about
my
that.
computer did that earlier today. It just completely shut off for no reason
Well,
whatsoever.
it is summer.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
heat.
I think that could be one possibility because it's never done that before ever.
Might want to take a look at it. Sometimes dedusting it really helps, but I'm sure you'll figure that out.
Yeah,
So, as a writer, are there any other authors that inspire you?
fanfic or real.
Both, suppose, or whatever's easiest or probably the most applicable for you.
Um, as like meta as it sounds, I still admire J.K. Rowling for what she did with Harry Potter. That's still my favorite book series of all time.
Hmm.
Um, fan fiction wise, I admire just a lot of the authors that just continue short skirts and explosions. I don't know how he does it, but he just cranks out chapter after chapter of story after story every single day, and I want to know how he does it because I'd love to have that focus. I admire anyone who can keep to a schedule and release chapters on a regular basis consistently. I wish I could get to a point where I could do that, but for me, it's just sometimes I'll put in 2 hours of work, sometimes I'll put in 10 hours of work. But I admire any author that can do that. I'm not sure if I have a specific favorite author, but just anyone who can write a good story is okay in my book.
Hmm. Speaking of scheduling, this actually is another question on the chopping block here. Why the year-long delay with Firebird Dahlia? I noticed that when I was going through it, that it was like, wait, wow, like I know you said you were finishing it, but I didn't know you had like dropped it for a year. Now, you probably may have said this in a previous blog post or something, but I didn't go that far deep in with it. But I am curious myself.
So Firebird Dahlia has the unique outstanding award for being the longest active story to be on hiatus. Um, Initially, it started with me going back to write Longer Friendship for just a little bit. I'm just gonna post 4 chapters in what I call the long week of friendship. Post a chapter every other day because I had accumulated a few chapters and just post that. And one of the chapters in that story was not the best well received, and that completely killed my motivation for writing for a good month. And then I thought, okay, I'm just gonna walk away from Longer Friendship for a little bit, go finish Fiber Dahlia, and then come back to it. So where I was in Fiber Dahlia, I knew how the story was going to play out, but for some reason, just I couldn't get myself to actually just sit down and write it.
Mm.
So I thought, okay, let me just take a week off, cool off, and then come back. Then my friend Drakey C posted a picture, which is actually the cover art for Sunlight, and said, someone should write a Vampire Sunset Shimmer story for Halloween. Damn it, Drakey. So that
Motivation
first
struck.
motion struck, ideas forming. Damn it. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to be the idiot that writes this story. And that took up all of September and October. So that's 2 more months of me not writing Fiber Dahlia or Longer Friendship.
Mm.
National Writing Month came around, and I had decided at the beginning of that year that I was going to take that month to write 50,000 words of one of my original works, and so I was gone all of that month. December rolls around, I'm back. Long Road Friendship needs to come to an end because it's been 2 years, almost 3 years of me writing the story, and I'd love to finish it just so I could say it's finally over.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent December and January doing that. February, I came back and finished Sunlight. Now it's March. I'm halfway through my hardest semester of college yet. Don't have time to really write at all, even though I know Fiber Dahlia is the one story that I need to finish before I can move on to everything else I want to work on. So it just kept on getting pushed back further and further. No matter what I tried to do, something would just jump in the way before I could go back and finish it.
Just a series of events then.
It's a
Interesting.
series of unfortunate events.
Yes. Never read that series myself, but
I actually liked it. It was dark without being overly dark, with a very hilarious narrator.
mm-hmm. Alrighty. So now another thing about Fiber Dahlia that I found interesting is that you chose Spitfire to be Sunset's sister.
Yes.
Just not that I have anything wrong with it, but what was the reason for that? Like why Spitfire? I mean, I get that they do look colors main scheme wise, they look similar. But was there any other real reason for that?
No, it was really just initially that. I looked at Spitfire, I looked at Sunset, and I thought they have a very similar color scheme. It'd be funny if they were sisters or something. And I ran with that idea, and that's how we got Fiber Dahlia.
All right then.
It's not that deep. It's just
It
me
yeah, I had a okay.
and working from there.
Gotcha. What I really like too is well, actually no, I'll say this. I don't want to spoil for anybody who hasn't read it. If you guys seriously, everybody in the chat, who I know most of you here are probably from Albino's thing, because I'm not as famous as he is, but
Not yet.
not yet. But if you haven't read Fire Dahlia, Sunset of Time, or Long Road to Friendship, highly recommend you read at least one of those. They are honestly really good. If you really want a short one, Fire Dahlia is probably your best bet. It's really nice and very just a great fic to read. Just a nice, fun time. A little bit of drama, but you know that's what happens with. Well, you'll find out. All right. Another thing too, though. Sunset's parents. You've written at least the three. You've written at least three different instances of them
Yep.
between that there, and I suppose a good question to ask would be what exactly. So, when writing them, what was going through your mind when like between okay, I wanted to be this for this story, but now for this one I wanted to be like that.
Half of it is just they need to serve whatever purpose I need them to serve for that story, and the other half is okay. Well, what idea of parental guidance haven't I done yet?
Mm.
So, Sunset of Time, darn, can I start talking about this without it being a spoiler for anyone who hasn't read it?
It's up to you. If it's you saying it, then I've got no qualms with it.
Okay, well,
I'd rather it not be me.
spoiler tag for anyone who hasn't read any of the stories
I'll
yet.
put it in editing. I'll
You're
put a
going
little.
in with no with. I give you a forewarning. I'll leave it at that. So Vesper's parents, for her to have that deeper connection with Celestia, I needed them to really be absent in some way, but I didn't want to just kill them off because that seems cliche. So just I think it would hurt her more for her to know that they just kind of abandoned her. They had a choice and they chose to leave her.
Mm.
And I think that created more of her attachment to Celestia, knowing that Celestia wouldn't, in her mind, and couldn't, being immortal, ever leave her. Long Road of Friendship. Again, I need Sunset to kind of have a strong relationship with Celestia and also explain, why she's so detached to everyone else around her that she thinks that she's so far above them. But I wanted them to still be somewhat present in her life. So I just made them have, demanding jobs. They loved her. They could never show it because of where they were in life. with those two covered, I get the fight for Dahlia. Like I actually want her to have a connection with her family. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason for her to go back to Equestria, try to repair all this damage. So that's where I actually had, here and I kick Sunset a lot.
Yes.
I am terrible
Yes, you
to
do.
her. I will not even lie about that. So I decided to throw her a bone for once and decide
Hey,
here's
you
some
have
parents
family.
that aren't horrible.
You have good parents.
Here's some good parents. That's
If
the
only it were
closest
that
I'm going to show you for a
easy.
while.
uh,
So yeah, it's whatever situation I need them to serve, and whatever I haven't done yet.
nice. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. It's a good one to ask here. Got like a whole list. It was writing that down on the train to BronyCon. I was just like, well, power is out on trains, so my phone's almost dead. I pulled up. I wrote this on the. I literally wrote this on the back of my train ticket. So yeah,
Whatever works.
whatever works. Um, let's talk about magic because I know in our previous correspondences you really said you really love to write magic in all the fics. We have it obviously in Fiber Dahlia, but mostly in Sunset of Time and a little bit of it in Lorwyn of Friendship, surprisingly. So what what are I suppose what are some ideas of magic that you wanted to do but decided against?
In which story?
Um, Probably Sunset of Time, since I know you had mentioned to me at least that there were a lot of ideas you wanted to do, but you held yourself back from doing.
Well, I know originally in the scene where they're in the Wind Cavern with the Tempest Crown, um, actually they weren't going to directly fight Vesper that time. Vesper was going to create a stone golem from the rocks in the cave, and they were going to fight that while she tried to grab at the crown, and then that would be mostly Twilight and Sunset confronting her. But when I started writing it in my head, I already knew that they were going to fight the Frost Lich at the end of the story. I thought these two scenes already in my head seemed too similar for me to have to write again in the Crystallarium, which is going to be all of them fighting the Frost Lich. Now it's all of them fighting the Golem, Sans Vesper.
Hmm.
So I changed it to let Vesper's not stupid. She knows that they're going to be at least a nuisance. Let me have her try to kill them off now. And then I realized she's also not going to throw any of her punches. So how do I have her fight them without any of them dying? And unfortunately, that's where I got the magical plot armor from.
Uh,
So that's two
that's
instances. That's a deleted magic and added magic that I had to use so no one died.
mm,
And then between when Twilight and Sunset started fighting, I actually wanted Twilight to utilize some more gravity spells, just because I thought it'd be a fun time to have her on the ceiling with Sunset trying to shoot her down. And then I kind of went with the flow for Celestia's fight with Vesper, and I just tried to throw in as much unique magic as I could. And if I could have more creative spells to use, it would have been awesome. But I do like how it turned out. I tried to make magic as alive and creative as I can.
oh right, nice. Um, Speaking of the Frost Lich, because that was actually personally one of my most I found one of the most interesting aspects to Sunset of Time. What were the inspirations behind like when you came up with this creature? Because I looked, after reading it, I looked into what a Frost Lich was, and it seemed that there was like quite a variance of at least what I could find. There seemed to be quite a bit of variance into like what it was, and yours seemed to be almost of your own making. So yeah, what were your inspirations and how you came about making that?
So the design for it actually kind of came from a dungeon boss in one of the MMOs I played. Really small MMO, mostly popular in Korea, but it had a few English servers. Me and my friends, it's one of the later bosses. Me and my friends got there. I saw like this thing is pretty cool. I love if I could use something like this later on. And I finally got my chance. Thought this would be a great thing for them to have to fight. But the way it works is I've made up most of like how it works on my own. Just I knew lich creatures in essence, you couldn't kill them. They're
Mm,
supposed to be like the ultimate form of undead being. So I thought just having just an undying dragon as an opponent would really be interesting in a My Little Pony setting. So, and then I just gave it a few ice powers because Frostlich, it's living
Well, yeah.
in a tundra. It should probably have some ice powers.
Hmm.
And yeah, just I thought at its core, it can't die, but it can reassemble itself if it's hurt. But, if it's say if you totally disintegrated its arm, and that arm probably isn't coming back, but it's still going to hobble around after you.
Mm, interesting. That's fair. And while we're on the topic of the crystallanium and other things like that, the dark regalia themselves. So you pretty much added two other pieces to what the Alicorn amulet was. And
Yeah.
was that your original intent when writing Sunset of Time, or like when? I mean, I'm not going to ask why the Alicorn amulet because that was an obvious choice after we just had season 3 happen around the time when you started writing this. And what made you like with coming up with the names and picking them, designing with all they do? What just the idea, the process into making those two? I'm curious.
So they were modeled after, kind of the standard things that the Alcorns were wearing, like Celestia's, like the yoke thing that she wears around her chest,
Yeah,
which,
I remember the name of that once upon a time.
yeah, I think it's a yoke chest plate thing. I don't remember.
It's a thing that she wears.
It's a thing.
It's her necklace. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a giant necklace, golden necklace. But that's where the Alcorn amulet kind of comes to play. And they're all wearing crowns, so that's what I thought. So a crown for them to give them wings, and all their pretty little horseshoes that Celestia, Luna, and Cadence all wear. That well, I could have some sort of horseshoes to give them the powers of the Earth Ponies. All right, boom, 3 materials for the Dark Regalia. Uh, Names originally I was trying to go for alliteration, so I was trying to think of something to go with like crown, like the cumulus crown. I think was one of the names I threw around.
Mm,
Originally, I wanted some little signifier that each part kind of corresponds to the power it would give you.
for the
But
race.
then for the race, I got to the hoof guards, so like the earth hoof guards, the terrestrial hoof guards, the ground. Screw it, I'm just gonna call it the obscene hoof guards because they're black.
Mm. Personally, I think that it worked out better for you to not have them be alliterated because it's just they definitely like to me stood out. I was like, I give you props because as somebody who's terrible, like I'm actually surprised I came up with this name for the podcast because I'm the worst person with names ever. So like they're memorable to me. So good job.
I love coming up with names. It's half the fun of writing is coming up with titles and chapter names, and sometimes it's a pain in the butt, but other times when you find that perfect name, you're just like, yes, that's going to just stick with you forever.
Okay. I'm actually going to jump off a bit of it into another topic here. I have been reading into your little episode blog reviews, and I must say they are awesome. They I just love how you have your own sunset co-piloting with you and writing, and you like how do you literally go through like all these frames of an image and write all the like you're crazy, man.
The wiki helps a lot because the wiki will have all the images from the episodes, so I don't actually have to do whatever it is that other reviewers do, like stop the episode, screen cap the image, save it in some file. So that part is taken care of for me. But yeah, deciding on which frame I should use and trying to come up with something funny for it, that's still a challenge.
Mm. And teachers told me not to use Wikipedia.
It's
Uh,
not Wikipedia. It's just the smaller wikis. It's just the MLP wiki.
yeah,
Oh,
the wiki as they call them, or whichever. All right. Yeah. So, what started that? I'm curious. Like, just what made you go like, huh? I'm gonna have my character review episodes with me.
I think it was a little drought in my writing. I was kind of at one of those standstills. I'm like, I don't feel like writing right now. And season 4 had just started, and I just thought, I don't know, I just thought I'd like to do something with the episodes, just to kind of show my interest for them. And I don't know, maybe it'd be funny if I did a little follow up review of them, not an actual review, because I'm not smart enough to be your analytic reviewer, but just a little commentary on some of the parts I thought were funny or interesting. Let me make it more interesting by having Sunset do it with me. And actually, for season 4, actually, it was Sunset times Sunset, and then season 5 and onward, it's been Longer Friendship Sunset because she's snarkier and will put me in my place if I go too far with any of my jokes.
Yeah, I only caught that was. I think I caught one after I read some sort of time, so I was confused at first. But then after I read Longer Friendship, I was like, I get it now. I had not read the previous one, so I'll have to go back and look at those and see the
Yeah,
differences. So that sounds interesting. No, that's cool though. I actually really do like how you do that. It's quite a unique way of doing it, and that in itself is like something definitely that you should get a lot more recognition for because it's well done. It really is.
it is what it is. And I've seen my views drop over the last couple of episodes, and I'm like, okay, well, if 300 people are reading them, that's still motivation for me to do it. So I'll keep doing it until there's no one else watching it.
Fair enough. I had a question. It went shoot. Brain, don't do this to me. Sh- crap, drawing a blank.
Oh no.
You know what? Okay, this is as good a time as any. I'm going to open up questions to the chat right now because it's been about 50 minutes in, something like that. So just quick rules, everybody here. So yes, you get to ask you get to ask this guy questions live, and he will answer them, provided that he is comfortable asking them, obviously. So you may send them away right now in the chat of my Twitch, and I will read them aloud to him. Uh, just bear in mind that anything inappropriate and or rude will be treated as breaking the rules, and my moderators will take care of it from there. So please be kind and ask away.
Oh, that's a good question.
That is.
So for me, right now, for all intents and purposes, Harmony is closer to an elemental force with some sentience, so it's almost a god, but not quite. It is definitely an elemental force that is somewhat aware of at least the balance between harmony and chaos, and will try to correct that balance in some way or another.
Okay. Let's see what everybody else gets. While you guys are asking away, I'm going to be looking through my list here, try to get my bearings straight again. I'm waiting for the Jeopardy theme to come on.
Another question.
So, which ship do you prefer, Sunset X Twilight or Sunset X Sci Twi?
I'm going to go with Sunset X Side twice. I haven't really even considered writing a story between Sunset and the Princess. Just every version of Twilight I've used happens to be closer to sci-fi.
Is that actually what people call her? Because I
Yeah,
was that was another bit of thing. I was like Sci Twi. What?
yeah. Following the third movie, people have dubbed her sci-fi to identify
Gotcha.
her from the Princess.
It's funny is when I was reading Longer to Friendship, for some reason I was ever since Equestria Games, when I was reading Longer to Friendship, I had pictured her as the third movie Twilight. It was only till when you had her change her looks, I was like, oh, I've been viewing her wrong this entire time.
Yeah, that's what happens when canon decides to dance all over my stories. So
Mm, I kind of like the look of the newer one better as a
it
personal.
it took a while for it to grow on me. Actually, it
Really?
wasn't bad, but just for two movies, all I've seen her as in canon and in my stories is just normal Twilight, just shorter. But now that she has this new look, it's grown on me. Like I can picture Sunset
I
and her
never.
making out.
Yeah. I never made, you know what it is? I never really, I think for me, it was like when they this first did Equestria Girls, I never really cared for how long Twilight's hair was, just kind of like long and straight for that. It just seemed kind of bland to me personally. So I guess that's why when I saw this, it's like, you know what? That's actually I like that look better. It fits like the nerd look more.
It does. Actually, like, I just went back to rewatch the first movie. I forget how long Sunset's hair is. It's pretty freaking long as a human.
That is true. Hers is decently long too. And just because this just popped into my head, I will say I give you major credit for making Cadence a radio show host because that was the best idea you ever could have done for somebody as like a human counterpart in this world. That was absolutely brilliant and much better than her being a dean on a school.
Okay, in my head, just because yes, half the cast goes to a high school doesn't mean literally everybody
Everyone.
has to be in the school system in some way. So I still am working on that. I'm trying to make sure just like all the new characters I'm going to have for Spectacular 7, they're not all linked to the freaking high school.
Mm.
That's too much of a coincidence. Also to note, funny enough, she wasn't going to be a radio talk show host in my original design for her. She was going to own a tea shop and then give fortunes to everyone who came in, love fortunes to everyone. So that was my first idea. And I thought, you know what? Her being a radio talk show host would be easier to spread her message of love.
I would so tune into that show. Just like in the morning, like I would so tune into that. Just
I
the
would love to hear her voice every
just
morning. It's
the no,
great.
and just because like I would like I would get some laughs out of like her giving advice to like as what how I forget how Sunset put it in your story,
Um,
but
hopeless, something, love struck,
hopeless.
hopeless idiots.
Yes, something along those lines, and I was just like, yeah, I would get a kick out of that too. Okay, let's see. We got a question here from Skyrazor. How did you react when you saw the kitchen scene in Rainbow Rocks after you more or less predicted it?
Smiling like an idiot most of the time. So I'm just watching this by myself. So yeah, just I'm just smiling, just thinking this is uncanny. Although of course I think in because I didn't get to see Rainbow Rocks until about a month or two after it came out in theaters. So by then people already told me about the kitchen scene. Like there's a kitchen scene with Sunset and Twilight. It looks just like your story. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Unexpected, but that's cool. I can't wait to see it. And so it's just, oh, this is cool. I can't believe somehow my psychic mind predicted this. Oh shit, Mod's there too. Wow, didn't see that coming.
Oh, wait. So you, God damn, dude, this is meant to be for you. I actually okay, I didn't check the dates for Lower to Friendship. So wow. So you actually wrote that before that scene happened.
Yep,
Jeez. And Mod 2. Mod 2 is what seals the deal for me. I mean, not exactly the same, but the fact that she's there is just brilliant. Freaking brilliant.
it's really just some things were just meant to happen.
Apparently, man. It sounds like it was meant for you, definitely. Okay, they got another one here from Undome Tinway. I think I said that right. In your postscript for Long Road to Friendship, you mentioned that you didn't think out the curse properly, and some comments have criticized the use of the curse in the story. Is there something you would have done differently regarding the nature of the curse or how you use it? This was actually another one on my list, so good question.
It is a very good question. Um, sorry, just look at the next question. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, the curse is the biggest drawback for the story, which is sad because it's one
The,
of the central plot devices for said story. But yeah, I did not think it all the way through, and I wish I had given just a little bit more thought to it or changed it completely. Someone, I think also in the postscript in the comments, had the idea that instead of her being forced to respond to anyone who says please or answer the question truthfully, she would get this like unimaginable feeling of guilt in her that would be just incredibly hard to ignore until she finally caved in and said yes to whatever it was. And I thought that sounds so much more reasonable than taking away her free will. Is just
mm,
throwing such an amount of guilt on her that she couldn't ignore it.
yeah, because my My biggest thing was is I wanted to what I pointed out was that it seemed like at first when I was reading through that please was not the keyword, but later on it seemed to be like the only thing that matters. If they said that, it would affect it. To which the point where
Yeah.
there was that one scene where I was confused as to why the elements would make her lie because someone said please.
So, please was one of the trigger words. It was really anything that would turn whatever the person's saying to sound like some sort of favor, and please is probably the most common one.
Sincere.
Is the most sincere version of asking someone for help. But it just after a while, it just ended up just becoming just the main trigger word is just please.
All right. Another one novel idea. You're actually Lawson, aren't you? I don't know what that means, so.
M.A. Larson. I think you just spelled it wrong. No, I
Oh,
am. I am not Larson. I am not related to him, and unfortunately, we've never even met in person. I've seen him at BabsCon last year, but no, we're not the same person.
he is a great guy. I actually had the chance to talk with him this past weekend. Did not expect that either because I only went. A quick thing with me. I'm not one to go nuts with getting autographs because they're always usually like $20 a pop, and I'm like, I don't know if this is something that I'm gonna be super thrilled by in the future. Although, admittedly, Larson was the first writer to make me stop and go, why the heck am I enjoying this show so much? That was Sonic Rainbow. He actually signed. So what happened was I bought his books at the convention. That came with a voucher. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm getting an autograph from Larson. That's what he wrote. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, in my book, and he signed it. So that was nice. I got to talk with him a bit about the episodes too, which was a lot of fun. He's a really cool. He's a total troll, but he can't. He's such a total troll with the
he,
fandom, but he is a really great guy and an awesome writer.
him and McCarthy are both major trolls, but they seem like pretty awesome people.
It's so funny. Ever since the movie, McCarthy's been so. I've kind of forgotten about McCarthy because of the movie. She's been so like not there,
Yeah,
and I
her
want her
her
back
bright
because
personality
no
is just the
offense to
main
John.
movie.
Yeah, and I want her back because no offense to Josh, but he completely killed Starlight for me, and I can't really forgive him for that.
Starlight is such a mixed bag for me right now. She was a great villain. I loved
She
her as a
was. She
villain.
was brilliant.
I thought she was fantastic as a villain. Just her big, just shut up moment to Twilight was just like I just had to go and applaud. Like that was great. Do it again. And
Put put the put the lecturer in her place.
let's just stop her flat right there. Just, no. And I want to keep liking her, and part of me does. Like now that they're expanding on her role and turning her into a better character, she's growing on me, but I'm still like just the last 10 minutes of the season 5 finale, just uh, such a mood killer.
It was such a MLP episodes happen to do this a lot where they really it's like, oh shit, we're running out of time, gotta rush to the end, guys. Oh, you're reformed, good, yay, done. And I hate that they did that with Starlight. I'm okay with her becoming reformed. I'm not okay with how like they just brushed it under the door, like they just swept it under the doormat
And
like that.
yeah,
And the thing is, they didn't fix it quite as conveniently as they did with Sunset. And I know there's always been this debate since I bring up Starlight because I know there's always been the debate of like Starlight versus Team Starlight versus Team Sunset. I've been seeing a lot of that lately.
Team Sunset, woo!
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing with me. I admit Sunset's awesome. She really is, and she's a total badass for her character, and she's really come a long way. And the thing though is Starlight's awesome too, and I kind of think she's just a bit more adorable for that. But I won't. I'm not gonna be. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, her right now her character is like really, really mixed back, as you said, with it. And it's interesting because I actually did want to get your. You pretty much just gave us another question. What was your thoughts on Starlight because of this whole thing? But you think you pretty much just gave those. So that's
I don't hate her, and I especially don't hate her because she assumingly took Sunset's place. Because honestly, I'm in the opinion that Sunset's fine where she is in the Equestria Girls world. If she comes back to Equestria, I'm all for it. If she stays in the human world, I'm still all for it. I'm also in the opinion that they didn't even need a seventh member, that they were fine as they were,
oh
and
yeah.
Starlight's just kind of an added extra that doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
It's funny. I got a card at BronyCon this year. That it was one of the official, like, not the CCG card trading ones, like the other ones that they're kind of just like the characters themselves. This one, as pretty much outright stated, main seven, and it's from Hasbro, and yeah, that's officially a thing now. Yeah, yeah, it's officially a
Okay.
thing, and I admit I'm not too thrilled myself. I'm kind of like okay, I guess, with it. But yeah, that's at the moment. I mean, it was official Hasbro cards says main seven, so they've dubbed it. They've coined the term. No going back now. And I do remember the Vegas Jim, who I think is like I forget his role on this. He's like one of the executives on the staff. Somebody asked him like a few months ago, about like or they were talking about Star Island, and they said, "What about Sunset Shimmer?" And his response was, "Who's Sunset Shimmer?" And then a picture of a cat going, "Oh snap."
Gosh, don't hate on my girl like that.
Yeah, no, and I think what they're really saying is they did outright state that Equestria Girls technically was never canon, and
McCarthy said it was. I'm not going to raise my voice
did she not
over
say
this.
that? I can't
She
remember.
said it was canon, but it's not going to affect the show.
Oh, well then, okay, then it's like all things with this show stuff. They really are kind of muddling all over the place with their stuff.
Uh,
They need somebody organize. They need Twilight. Twilight organize their stuff.
it's serious overhaul from Twilight.
Uh, okay, so alrighty. Question
I think the
from
next
Novel
question
Idea:
is,
Do you remain interested in game design?
um, I would love it if I could somehow land the position as like a storyboard writer, but I don't know how to break into that field. So I want to say yes, I still am interested in some form of game design, but I have no idea how I would get there right now.
Hmm. Flash is a horrid cop out. She also we would never see Flash again. Yeah, that was the thing that annoyed me was that they had that stupid like return of him. And, like I know when I look back at it now, Flash's character isn't that bad. He's just super cliche.
Yes, he is a walking bag of cliches.
And I actually think you did a better. I shouldn't say think. You did do a better job with him in your stories for Long Road to Friendship. I actually really liked his character. That he kind of was someone who looked to see the better in Sunset, but then eventually was like, you know what, I've had it with your shit.
Yeah, I've never hated Flash like at all. I
I
felt
hated the shipping more than I hated Flash. Let's be honest.
eh,
It was kind of just like I don't know. This is like
yeah,
it
it
was
was
forced, very
it was
forced.
forced. It was there for the sake of being there, and they never even acted upon it, which in hindsight is still probably better than if they had. But just I felt sorry for him because here's just this character that's supposed to be important is not written very well at all, and unfortunately just has all these cliches to him and a fan base that hates his very existence.
Because
And
my waifu.
because my wife did. I'm just like, I sympathize with you because on some levels I'm kind of like Flash. I can never get the girl.
I
So
think we're a lot of us like
yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to just dismiss you as you don't even exist anymore. I'm going to try to use what I can of you and do something with your character. I don't know what it is yet, but you're going to be at least somewhat semi-important.
that. Okay, another question here from Ricksec2. What would you hope to see if Sunset actually went into the show?
First and foremost, I want her to make up with Celestia.
Yeah, I do too. That
That's that's it. And then if I'm being ultra cynical, I want her to have a showdown with Starlight and win.
ooh, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like we've only seen Sunset teleport and levitate things in the human world. I know she was her student, but Starlight is really OP when it comes to magic.
Okay, yeah, ridiculously OP that she can pretty much beat Twilight, who's an alicorn, has wielded the full powers of three other alicorns, went toe to toe with Tyrek, and yet lost to Starlight, essentially.
I'll be completely frank with you. They really just hate the alicorns. It seems
They can't catch a break.
the alicorns really can't catch a break. It sucks because
It,
personally, I feel like rather than Starlight being OP, there were moments I was like, I feel like Twilight just sucks. Just not what she was
Yeah,
like if you look back at what she pulled off in like even see like Trixie up the Ghostbusters with the Ursa Minor Major or
this was like
whatever,
three spells at once
three
that she was
spells at
doing.
once with a giant freaking celestial bear, and now it's like she can't even hit something. And I mean, I'm all for Starlight being magically gifted. I mean, you got to have more than one pony being good at that. But yeah, I have to admit that it's there's such contradictions in the show lately. The canon has become very
Up
messy,
and down.
up and
It's
down and messy.
and that's what happens when you get so many writers and go on for 6 seasons now. You kind of lose track of where you are.
Fair, yeah, that is. I mean, we got I actually that's another thing too. I've been looking back at the old list of writers, and it's like, wow, we are really. Who are you, new people? Like the only one that I have liked so far, who's really good, is Nick, who wrote the Saddle Row Review, the Starlight Trixie episode, and
That was two good
two
episodes.
good episodes. And he also, I think he did Hearthbreakers last season and another one. I can't remember which. I want to say it was Party Pooped, but I can't remember. But
Heartbreak was okay.
it was okay. No, but these two new ones have been, and it turns out another thing when I spoke with Larson, apparently him and Nick are friends, and they've done a lot of shows in the past they did work with, and he's talking a lot about like the stuff that Nick has done and his good points in writing, and it was nice because it makes sense that it's why the writing's so good is like they are very similar to each other. And that's why I like the new Nick's because he is like the Larson 2.0 for the writers. He really is. I mean, when that second Pinkie Pie came out, I talk about this scene all the time. That second Pinkie Pie drop, that not only that catch me by so much surprise and made me almost fall out of my seat, but what I loved about that is like that right there is how you like give yourself more legroom for potential stories in the future. That's how you like branch out and create more possibilities. And yeah, no, so
Yeah,
but the writers have really changed over the years, and it's really been. I agree with you, but I think it's hard to keep things consistent when you have that happen. Anyway, let's see if we got any more questions in the chat. I don't see any that I haven't seen yet. Let's. Okay, this one's a big one on my list actually. Here, I think this is a good time as any. Now, I know you said you wanted to do a chick, which was, of course, Onward to Friendship, though. My question particularly was, do you think you could have done it without the romance?
yeah, I probably could have.
Okay, because
It's
there
totally
were
in the realm of possibility that I could have. Just it was fun.
okay. Because honestly, like I said, like I've thought a few things with some of your stories was like it was especially with Longer Friendship. A lot of it was ideas that I warmed up to. Once I got more taste of them, it was like this actually isn't too bad. Although I think the biggest one that was like I was totally for it. I just think that there were a few moments that it was just sudden. It was just like, oh, well, that escalated quickly. And I think a few when I was looking through, I rarely look at comments for stories because I tend to avoid the cynical people.
Yeah,
Because then my viewing gets ruined for the whole reading, and it's just like no, I don't want to be swayed by anybody's thoughts but my own. But I did notice that some people seemed very like at least the vocal ones about it were very cynical to the whole shipping aspect to it. But I did have to bring up the point that yeah, I was curious if you thought that was that something that you thought was unnecessary or just something that you just did because you wanted to do it.
I think there were more people who were for it than who were against it. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure they have a lot more downvotes than I do now. But yeah, it was there. It was going to be a romance from the outset. It's not something I
Okay.
just threw in at the last minute. The story was to serve two purposes. One, to show Sunset's transformation from a total megalomaniac to a somewhat decent person, and two, to see if I could ship Twilight and Sunset together. Turns out I can.
Mm, that indeed. I will say I know people hated the scene at the Thanksgiving dinner, but I personally that kind of humor is my humor, so I want to just say thank you for that. That was absolute gold.
I think they hated it in the sense that they knew what was going to follow afterwards. So I think
It was totally predictable, but it
it was the good kind of hatred.
it was a good hatred, but I can enjoy that. It's like it's why I enjoy like cringe humor and even like the most like absurd humor, like with the stupid like 4chan like posts that I see. Like some of them are terrible, but I just can't help but laugh.
I know I avoid cringe humor as much as I can, but it's that was one of those scenes where like this is going to be cringe humor. There's no way around it. I knew it was coming for chapters and chapters on end, so I'm like, well, it's time to just get down and do it. So here it goes.
Okay, now. All right, now this one is okay. Now I'm gonna break my own rules here, but this one is actually a question that was on my mind. Back to the Lullamans themselves in Longer of Friendship, particularly with Artemis, and then with you actually made magic a real thing in the story. You actually made magic exist. I know it technically they've said it does. It's just not as strong in the real world, but you outright made it so that the Lulliman family was gifted in it, or at least on Trixie's dad's side of the things. So not to ask like why do that, because well, I mean it was cool. It was I just loved Artemis, probably one of the best characters. Like out of original characters, he was again pure gold. That I enjoyed every bit of him being in it. But what was your idea or motivation for writing him? What made you think I'm gonna make Trixie's dad be Starlight's boss at a magic shop and have him actually have magic?
Um, so Artemis himself has an interesting history. For an old story that I was writing that's now for all intents and purposes dead, because I'm probably never going to get a chance to go back to it. He was actually going to be a villain in that story.
Hmm.
And when that story kind of died out, I still wanted to use him. I thought, well, I'll just not make him a villain, make him actually a decent father to Trixie. And then I thought, just where did Trixie get all these quirks from? It had to be someone in her family who's almost as nutty and eccentric as she is, and that's where I kind of redesigned his personality to fit that.
Where did she get the third
And
person thing from? Artemis has no idea.
I actually don't know where she got the third person from. Artemis does not usually speak in third person, and neither does Selena. So that's kind of just Trixie's own verbal tick. If she likes to
Which is
speak in
actually
third
fine
person.
because I kind of like that. I kind of like that it was just her own thing.
Yeah,
That was a funny little drop. I was just like, ha 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 ha, you did it.
it's that, and the fact that he could use magic, a lot of it. So originally, I even said in an author's note that, or maybe in the comments, that no, it wasn't real magic initially. But when I started thinking long term and just how far the story was going to go, and that I wanted magic to be in this world later on, I made the only instance of retconning I've ever done to myself and decided, you know what, that was real magic.
Hmm.
And so it's mostly a setup for what's going to happen in Spectacular 7.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to a few more chat questions because we've got quite a few here. First one from Novel Idea. Favorite three episodes? I imagine he means the show.
Um, uh, oh god, I just Luna Eclipse is definitely up
Hmm.
there. I wish they would use that version of Luna in this show more often instead of her being dark and moody. Like they make great use of her in the comics, and just that one episode, which that was a great
Trying to
episode.
adjust back to life after 1,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great. It was hilarious. Um, Overall, the first four episodes of season two were just some of the best episodes in the show. I loved Return of Harmony, seeing Discord for the first time, and just all the insanity and hilarity that came from that. But Amending Fences is now one of my favorite episodes. It was great. That was just a really great episode. And it's that one little throwaway line in the first episode comes back to be this important moment in Twilight's life, which I think is also kind of a retcon, saying that she did have friends in Canterlot. She just kind of ignored them. I kind of liked it better when she just didn't have friends, period. But just bringing Moondancer into the show like that was great. And the third episode, I don't know. Those are definitely two of my favorites right there.
Okay. Let's see. Next one here we have. What are your expectations for the LP movie and/or the new Equestria Girls movie from
Um,
Skyraiser 151?
I can't say if I have any expectations for the NLP movie yet because we really haven't seen
Yeah,
anything of
we
it.
really have no idea what to
I
expect.
just I know there's just they're bringing in a lot of actors, most of which I've never heard of before because I'm
Mm,
not really a movie buff. But I'm expecting just the biggest adventure that they've ever had.
I hope so.
And then for the next Crusher Girls movie, well, I've already read some of the synopsis for it, and well, unfortunately, Sunset isn't apparently going to be the focus of the movie. Really, it's going to be back on Sci-Fi, so that kind of irks me a little bit.
I didn't even know that. That irks me too.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what the full synopsis is, just because if anyone wants to go in completely blind, but it's just the focus isn't on Sunset for this movie; it's on Sci-Fi,
Okay.
and that's cool, I guess. But I'm like, she's the protagonist for this universe. Can we just keep the focus on her? But no, fine. That's fine. I'll just keep working on my stories. You guys do your own thing.
It's okay. Your stories are enough. Okay, in your hilarious abridging of Long Winter Friendship, we saw in a joke that Fluttershy was crushing on Sunset Senpai. Is that just a one-off joke, or will we see canon hints of that in the future of your stories by Rixek 2?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, how do I answer this without spoiling anything? Maybe
Exactly what
you'll
I.
see. You'll see something. You'll see something of something happening in the next story.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. From novel idea, where did the idea of Selena having a skill in fencing come from?
Um, so she's not magical at all. But I still want Trixie to kind of just come from an overall slightly eccentric family. And Selena's supposed to be like the straight man to Trixie and Artemis. Both of them are eccentric and over the top and crazy. But I didn't want her to be just, this useless house mother. I want her to be epic in her own fashion.
Mm.
So I gave her a skill that I really wish I had, which is fencing. I thought she would just be this awesome fencer slash novelist. I gave her a lot of things that I want to do just to make up for her not having magic, I guess.
Interesting. Okay. I think we're running down the line here. We're getting close to the end of all these. Oh, Here's an old fun one. What would be your cutie mark if you were a pony?
Actually, it would be a open book with a. I want to have a feather quill writing in it, just to kind of symbolize my love of writing stories.
All right. List of questions. List of questions. All right. Do you have any tips or advice for rookie writers in the community?
Oh boy, that question.
Yeah, a
Uh,
common one, but I find people tend to appreciate it.
I like trying to give help any way I can. Um, I guess my first tip would be just for your first story, I think it's always good to have at least one editor, and not just a proofreader, just someone to bounce ideas off of. Because Sunset of Time would not nearly be as good without the two editors that I had. Um, and like they didn't jump in until after like the third chapter. But if I didn't have them to bounce ideas off of, I don't know where the story would be. It definitely wouldn't be as good as I got it to be. But then just someone to actually learn from. Having two editors, I learned a lot of writing techniques and basic punctuation and grammar skills that I didn't have going in, and that it naturally made my writing stronger. Like I've drastically cut down on using my passive voice since then. Um, Second, write what you know and write what you like. Like I don't want to say don't do this, but don't write something everyone else has already written 1,000 times over unless you really think you can put a different spin on it and make it unique. Like I know there's always a trend like writing right now. I think the biggest thing is writing those displaced stories that everyone likes writing right now. And essentially, it's all the same thing. It's someone dresses up at a convention and gets sent to Equestria. Write something else. Write something more unique than that. Something that you actually want to do and think is a good idea. That's all the advice I can give without rambling.
From Skyraiser, have you read Sunset Reset?
I've read the first two chapters of it so far. It's okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's by no means is it bad. It's just I might start reading it again. Just right now, I'm not really reading too many stories. Actually, I'm really trying to write more than I am reading. But it's definitely on my read later list, and I'm probably gonna keep picking at it for now. And yeah, it's not bad. It's just it's not super appealing to me at this point.
Oh, jeez. Sorry about that. But
All right.
okay. um, I think I've covered all of them except for the few I have left of Sunset of Time, my personal favorite, because, well, you brought me back into fanfiction, my friend. So, uh, righty. So I really am curious. What were some of the big challenges running a time travel story? Because I give you major credit for keeping it fairly, if not completely, consistent with a complete time stream. There was no real like, oh well, convenience for plot kind of shenanigans going on. It was fairly. I know some people were struggling with comprehending it, but as somebody who's like seen all the different time travel stories, I could say for certainty this one was definitely much more tame and clean and consistent. So I'm really curious the challenges you had to go through with writing Sunset of Time and the time travel that went through with it.
Time travel is so much fun. Sarcasm, sarcasm. Um, One of the challenges, not necessarily for time travel itself, but was making the hourglass relevant throughout the entire story, so that Sunset's first trip to the past wasn't the only time she was going to use it, and then that would lead me to the scene in the desert where she and Rainbow Dash do use it. That's really where I started having trouble with the time travel mechanic because I had to make sure that what they were doing didn't result in a paradox and still follow the line of thought I have for time travel for the story, and that line was time is linear.
Hmm.
So just leading up to that scene, I was really freaking out, going, "How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this?" And as people have pointed out in the comments, that it played a lot like Harry and Hermione's time travel in Prisoner of Azkaban. I do think that is where some of my inspiration for that part came from. It was really just trying to make sure that what they did resulted in a closed loop. So that was one challenge, and then the other challenge came at the end of the story where everything was said and done. Like, how does this affect the future? Time is linear, so time would essentially rewrite itself, and that would result probably in Sunset being erased from time.
Hmm.
And so it was trying to keep reasoning of why she didn't disappear beforehand. And my reasoning for that is, up until then, she hadn't done anything that directly jeopardized her existence. Like library burning in Cloudsdale, yes, that has created, a new future, but she's still a part of that future because she hasn't done anything that directly hurts her own existence. And it's really just trying to explain how time travel works within the story so that everyone understands, what model of time travel you're using. That's probably the hardest part.
Yeah. Another one from a novel idea. Why did the character depart in quotes, but the memories remained for the characters that remained? I imagine you're talking about the end of the story.
Um, there's actually there was actually a potential for me to branch off to write a sequel around that idea. Is that everyone but Twilight forgot, and Twilight would try to prove to everyone else
That it
that
happened.
it happened, and that would lead her to go on a search for said missing character. I don't know why I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. I already said it was a spoiler. So it would result in her going on a search to prove that Sunset existed, since she was the only one who could remember Sunset being there. But, the reason they can all remember it, friendship.
the
That's my reasoning
Deus
for
Ex
it.
Machina friendship.
Deus Ex Machina friendship. I don't want to say it's a Deus Ex Machina, but it probably is.
I mean,
But
the show's made it that, so
yeah, it's because friendship. Twilight believes in her hard enough that she remembers Sunset exists.
I'll buy that. I still love that, like in the soul scene. That's still probably the best for me. That whole sequence was just amazing. Okay, so let's see. Cheater, which I totally accept. uh, there are quite honestly a plethora of questions for Sons at a Time that I could ask, but
Oh, I'm all for it.
you're all for it.
I'm all for it.
All right, let's go through here. Probably all right. One of my favorite points of the story itself. Vesper Radiance. What was the most fun you had with writing her?
All of it.
All of it.
Literally just all of it. Just anytime she was going to be in a chapter, I'm like, yay, Vesper's back. How evil can I make her? And how many times is she going to cackle madly? Just honestly, my favorite parts of her are whenever she's at her absolute worst, which usually results in pain for Sunset.
Yes. Yeah, I still say how dare you for making me feel emotions in that story too. I'm not gonna lie, I am somebody who does not work. I don't do tears. I really don't do tears. But when someone can make me get misty eyed, like that is no easy feat. So that was
I am the same way. I have never recently, very recently, there was only one story that made me actually like scream, "No! Why is this character dead? How could you do this to me?" But no, yeah, normally I'm usually completely calm. I'm sad on the inside. I cry on the inside like Applejack.
I suppose I could say the same myself. Okay, no. Vesper was definitely one of the biggest best things you had going for Sunset of Time for sure. Um on that note, writing Celestia with as often as she has been really thoroughly crapped upon in recent episodes of the actual
Uh,
show. What was your inspiration for her? Why write her the way? Why did you write her the way you did for Sunset of Time?
I guess a lot of it just kind of goes in the head canon. I see Celestia as, this not all powerful, but very powerful being with 1,000 years of experience and wisdom. Yet, her only family is locked inside the moon, and then to see this Billy with amazing potential and no family to call her own, that kind of follows after her so closely. Celestia wants to reciprocate that feeling and for the first time be an actual mother to just one pony. But at the same time, she knows that she still has an entire country to run and responsibilities that take precedence over Sunset. So it was really a lot of that, just writing that conflicting emotions inside of her to a believable way where, you know, she knows what she's supposed to be doing, but she doesn't want to do it because it's going to hurt a lot, and she's already gone through that pain. She doesn't want to go through it again.
Mm.
But I do see her as this kind mother figure. I don't see her as a tyrant.
Or just, well, whatever they're trying to make her be right now.
I want to make her useful, as well. And the hard thing is,
You did a great job with that.
it was hard making her useful without making her just outright go out, confront Vesper in like the seventh chapter, and end the entire story right there.
Mm. No, her motivations were fairly clear, and I agree. And I kind of liked how I'm just gonna put a big spoiler at the like this tail end of the episode here for everybody. Like I like how Luna was the anchor for her. I like that you kind of threw you. It's like what if Celestia's flaws, which is good to show that she has flaws as a character, that she's not perfect. Because I know at first we thought, oh, she's a god. Well, she's not because well, Bug Butt did like kick
Yeah,
her butt.
yeah,
But
yeah. One blast.
the fact that Luna was like the her anchor to her rational side of things when she was getting emotional for albeit obvious and understandable reasons, that was a lot of the reasons why I realized, huh, he actually has a good Celestia going for him here and a decent Luna too. That was, I think, the big thing that really stood out to me was like I actually like where this is shaping up right now currently, and then you furthermore did that when you developed her relationship with Vesper in the past and so on, and then so that was another big. That was definitely what I mean. There's a lot of big points with me for stories. I am one of the few. I find it very hard to say negative things to think. I try my best to point out like okay what you could have done better, but I'm generally very often just I like it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not a real reviewer. I'm terrible at giving just hard criticism just because I know how much criticism directly can hurt. So I try to balance it out by saying it, here's what you could have done better. Here's what's kind of weak, but you did this really well.
Hmm. Another one from I saw his name a second ago. Question from somebody. You mentioned in your postscript for Sunset of Time that souls fascinated you. What brought this about? Was it from a previous story that you've read?
I don't think it's from a previous story I've actually read. Just I don't know, the concept of souls is just something that's always just been just such a fascinating and deep topic to talk about. Like, the original novel that I'm working on heavily focuses on the idea of souls and reincarnation, and just there's so many things you can do and talk about with just the soul, the very essence of somebody, just who and what somebody is. There's so many directions that you can just go with that. What makes up a soul? Where do souls come from? Where do souls go? Can you split a soul? Can souls actually be destroyed? Just the ins and out of that is it's a giant labyrinth of things that I'd love to talk about, and is really kind of a running theme in almost all of my heavy stories. That, that's going to that's going to be a concept in Spectacular Seven as well, as we're going to talk about souls.
Hmm. I look forward to that then for sure. Question from me: are you coming to BronyCon next year? Because I have a Sunset Shimmer pin to give you.
I really, really want to. It's between. I mean, if I can, I like to go to both BronyCon and Everfree Northwest. But if I have to pick one, it might be BronyCon next year because like there are so many authors that went there that I'd love to talk to and just kind of feel a part of. This is my community. This is my part of the fandom. Yay! So if I can swing it, I'd love to go to BronyCon and meet some friends.
Not to convince you not to go to Everfree, but I have a one friend who lives on the West Coast, and he's been to BabsCon, he's been to Everfree Northwest, he's been to Equestria LA, he's been to Pacific PonyCon. It seems like the West Coast people really have it easy for getting to cons. But he came to BronyCon last year, and he did come again this year. And he said to me that BronyCon really has a lot great, probably definitely one of the top ones they're going for it. So, I mean, as someone who's been to quite a few, and the fact that he's saying it was way, way up there, definitely
Yeah.
something to consider. But
Yeah, I went to BabsCon last year and I
mm,
had fun, but I think I would have had more fun if I had actually known someone when I
there's
went.
a running joke with me that like I am the living nexus of horse famous people because with between when I used to do interviews with people and just my general I talk with all the people I can. I just find everybody like everyone's awesome, and I literally know just about everybody there to the point where I'm just sitting down casually next to someone. What was it? Brainstorm Alex, who does animation videos. I just happened to be sitting down with my one friend while we were kind of waiting for panel to start, and some guy next to me asked if I could borrow, if I happen to have an iPhone charger he could borrow. I said sure. I handed him that I noticed. It's like, oh, it's Brainstorm. And then I'm a Toon Link from Brony's Reaction or Viva Rivera, I think it's called something, shows up, and it's just I have this natural way of attracting people to the point where it's just like, why do I know everybody? How did it get this far? How did this happen? Just what the heck? There are a lot of great people, no, but you are right that there are a lot of people. I think Wanderer D is one I talk to quite a bit. He's a great guy. The guy who actually approved my horrible fan fiction that I still keep up on fiction. I interviewed him way back when too. He's D is an awesome guy, and there are a lot of great like other writers out there who I'd love to meet with a bit more. I just there's too it's I would be at my wits end trying to talk with everybody at BronyCon, but
It sounds like it'd just be a really good time.
it's really a great place to just really chat with people. I think that's the reason why I keep coming back is because I know I will have good friends to hang out with and just talk about anything with for that matter and just have a good time. I mean, and the panels are fun, the concert, the music's a blast to be there for that. It is a great time. And well, I will say for sure that the vendor hall is so tempting with everything.
I bet.
I mean, dude, like I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, I was thinking to myself, like, with all this Sunset stuff here, I wonder how well he'd be able to handle, like, not spending his entire bank account.
I at BabsCon I spent I think $75 on a plushie for of Sunset, so that's mine.
That is more than reasonable. That is way more
Yes,
than reasonable.
and I spent $20 to get signed by Rebecca, so totally worth it.
That is so worth it.
Oh, and then I got a towel. I got a towel with Sunset Shimmer's key
Cutie
mark
mark.
on it.
Yeah, I think those are being sold this year too. And
Totally worth it.
it was funny when you mentioned that you love Starlight's scene where she goes quiet to Twilight, because I actually picked up, I'm holding it right now, I picked up a lenticular card of that scene. It's one of those cards where you flip and they change like pictures back and forth. And it goes from
With the
Twilight,
holographic
it goes,
cards.
yeah, apparently they're called lenticular cards. But yeah, it goes from Starlight's angry face to Twilight's response face. And for $20, it was so worth it just looking at this thing. And now, like, I hope that if you do come next year, that they'll be selling them because it is quite a treat to look at. I'll be very generic. Okay, another question from Skyracer here. I'm going to be very generic with this one. If there was one thing you could change from any of your stories, what would that be?
There's a lot of things that have changed in my stories.
I think we
Um,
all.
uh, it's a toss up between either changing the nature of the curse and level of friendship,
Mm,
or in Sunset of Time, not exactly changing, but I would add in more just simple moments between sunset and twilight. Because I think 80% of the story, they're in some sort of crisis. And they never really get too much time just to talk to each other about something that isn't heavy. So I would change that.
hmm. Another one of the generic questions I have here. Scrapped fan fiction ideas, stories, anything that you're willing to divulge that you just would never see the light of day, you just didn't go through with, but thought was a good
That is
idea.
that is a great question that I am going to answer in about a week's time on my next blog.
I will take that answer. All right, I'll be looking forward to that. So, honestly, I think I've reached my wits end here with all, not wits end, but I think I've reached the end here of my list of questions. So, unless the chat has anything else more to say, I think we're going to start closing this out here.
Come on, guys, I have nothing else to do today. Talk to me. Nope. I guess I probably should get back to writing if I can get my motivation for it.
The motivation is that they're like here right now and they love your work and they
That
want
is,
more of it. And if they don't get it, they might form an angry mob outside your house if they know where you lived.
yeah, it's a good thing I live in an underground bunker in an undisclosed location.
Novel ideas have questions. Novel, you've had some really good questions though. So give you all you guys have answered questions. Major props. You've had quite a
Yes,
few
thank
good
you so
ones in the
much.
list. Um, okay, so I'm just going to go through with the closing questions here, and we will pretty much put this episode to a close. So, what is for anybody? This is, and again, these last two are really for you to choose to open or not, or to answer or not. God, I'm stumbling my words again. I gotta fix that. What is the best way for someone to get in contact with you if they ever have any other questions or anything?
Uh, PM me. I'm FinFic is kind of my central hub for all things internet. That's usually the first thing I open up when I turn on my computer. So just a simple PM. I usually refresh my page about every hour, hour and a half. Um, yeah.
Okay. And how long do you think you'll keep on doing what you do with this fandom?
As long as I can until real life becomes comes too close and I can't ignore it any longer and say, all right, I'm gonna have to get rid of something. And unfortunately, that something is gonna be fan fiction. But until then, I'm gonna keep writing at least until I finish my biggest story that I'm going to start working on next year. That's pretty much an accumulation of everything I've ever learned. And just finishing that story is going to take a while. So
Hmm.
I'm going to be here for at least hopefully a couple of years. If anything, the last thing that I want to do is finish Spectacular 7. If I have to call it quits at a certain point, it will be after I finish that.
All right. Um, and what can we be expecting soon from you? As a final
Um,
question, anything, any little bonus insight you can give us here right now live?
so as soon as the cover art for Across the Shimmering Sea is done, that is pretty much going to be the next story I publish, and hopefully that'll be early next month. Fingers crossed. I need to go talk to the guy who's supposed to be making that cover art. This is pretty simple cover art, so I don't think it'll take him that long to make it. So that's my next story that should be releasing, which is going to be high seas adventure romance fic with Sunset and Twilight, because I just can't not do that. And then after that, it's Spectacular 7 time.
Nice. Is this Equestria Girls or
It's
the
it's it's an alternate universe, but they are human.
okay, interesting.
I do need to make a story where it's a romance between the princess and Sunset instead of Sci-Twi.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about that. I was just curious. I was trying to think, was this Equestria sailing or is this human world sailing? That's what I was more so.
Human
Okay,
world sailing.
okay, that answers that. Albino, this is Pickleless. I love you. That's all. Waiting for that sequel. And
Love
yes,
you too.
as my mod Opal Spark has asked me, this will this be on YouTube or anything? Yes, I will be putting this up onto my YouTube as soon as I get it rendered out and any edits or spoiler warnings or anything else that I decide to do with it. But I might. It shouldn't take too long. I don't think I'm going to edit these episodes too much. At least not until I really decide how much I'm going to be doing these. It's right now for those who have enjoyed this tonight and want more, looking for more, from the horse's mouth is going to be at the moment a monthly sort of deal, just to make it easy on me because I'm in the process of transferring to a new college, and once this time I'm going to be living on my own in a dorm, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to do things by myself. Um,
It's not as
so
hard as you think.
no, I know it isn't. I've done plenty of. I know that it'll work out just fine. But once I get settled in there, I will see about potentially making it a bi-weekly sort of deal because most of it is just getting people to sit down for a nice long conversation, interview, questions, and such, and just any other pre-planning of things. Like I've decided that hey, this guy likes sunset. I'll just have a slideshow of sunset images going across the screen for the
Which are
episode.
very nice sunset images.
Yes, I was like, okay, I got to pick ones that are appropriate yet good quality. That's why I was like, okay, good. There are quite a few sunlight or no, what are they? No, is it sunlight? Is that the term?
Sunlight.
Sunlight. Okay,
I call it sunlight.
okay. I call it sunlight too. It works. So yeah, gotta get best horse indeed. Um, so yes, for anybody looking who has not caught this episode or is just catching the tail end of it, it will be on my YouTube. I will be posting that, and I will I will give it to Albino too, so he can put that out there, so that because I know most of you are probably coming from uh, his film fiction page, so I'll have him post it there, so you guys can catch the recording of it. And yes, if you enjoy this, follow me on Twitch. Opal, if you could put the my Twitter in there too, so they can follow that. That is where I am most active on social media. So if you keep up to date with anything going on there, we'll do that. Anyhow, Albinocorn, dude, it's been a real pleasure. Been a real blast
It's
talking
been
to you.
it's been a lot of fun. I hope I haven't rambled too much.
Not more than myself, probably. It's been it's no, it's a real it's been a real pleasure getting back into this, and Glad that you are my without making this suggestive at all. Glad that you were my first.
I'm glad I just gave you a good time. That's all I'm
Yes,
happy
you
about.
certainly did, and definitely everybody here who is not from him, who's from me, go check out his stuff. I'm gonna put that in the chat in just a moment, but do check out this guy's stuff. I'm gonna grab it right now. Here is his fan fiction. Go follow him. Go read his stories. They're a tremendous reads, all 5 of them, and soon to be more at this point.
Soon to be more.
All right. Anyway, guys, this has been From the Horse's Mouth. I am your host, Brony, and our guest, the Albinocorn. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
See you guys around.